Jai Gurudev. Indian Constitution at Work. Chapter 5 Legislature. Introduction. You have already studied the importance of elections and the method of elections adopted in India. Legislatures are elected by the people and work on behalf of the people. In this chapter, you would study how elected legislatures function and help in maintaining democratic government. You will also learn about the composition and functioning of the parliament and state legislatures in India and their importance in democratic government. After reading this chapter, you would know the importance of the legislature, the functions and powers of the Parliament of India, the law-making procedure, how the Parliament controls the executive, and how the Parliament regulates itself. Why do we need a Parliament? Legislature is not merely a law-making body. Law-making is but one of the functions of the legislature. It is the center of all democratic political process. It is packed with action, walkouts, protests, demonstration, unanimity, concern and cooperation. All these serve very vital purposes. Indeed, a genuine. Yet, in most democracies, legislatures are losing central place to the executive. In India too, the cabinet initiates policies, sets the agenda for governance and carries them through. This has led some critics to remark that the parliament has declined. But even very strong cabinets must retain majority in the legislature. A strong leader has to face the parliament and answer to the satisfaction of the parliament. Herein lies the democratic potential of the parliament. It is recognized as one of the most democratic and open forum of debate. On the account of its composition, it is the most representative of all organs of government. It is above all vested with the powers to choose and dismiss the government. Why do we need two houses of parliament? The term parliament refers to the national legislature. The legislature of the states is described as a state legislature. The parliament in India has two houses. When there are two houses of the legislature, it is called a bicameral legislature. The two houses of the Indian Parliament are the Council of States or the Rajya Sabha and the House of the People or the Lok Sabha. The Constitution has given the states the option of establishing either a unicameral or bicameral legislature. At present, only 6 states have a bicameral legislature. States having a bicameral legislature are given below: Andhra Pradesh, Bihar, Karnataka, Maharashtra, Telangana, Uttar Pradesh. Countries with large size and much diversity usually prefer to have two houses of the national legislature to give representation to all sections in the society and to give representation to all geographical regions or parts of the country. A bicameral legislature has one more advantage. A bicameral legislature makes it possible to have every decision reconsidered. Every decision taken by one house goes to the other house for its decision. This means that every bill and policy would be discussed twice. This ensures a double check on every matter. Even if one house takes a decision in haste, that decision will come for discussion in the other house and reconsideration will be possible. An upper house could perform the usual function of being a revising body, and its views may count but not its votes. Those who could not enter into the rough and tumble of active politics could advise the lower house. Purnima Banerjee, Rajya Sabha. Each of the two houses of parliament has different bases of representation. The Rajya Sabha represents the states of India. It is an indirectly elected body. Residents of the state elect members to state legislative assembly. The elected members of state legislative assembly in turn elect the members of the Rajya Sabha. We can imagine two different principles of representation in the second chamber. One way is to give equal representation to all the parts of the country irrespective of their size or population. We may call this as a symmetrical representation. On the other hand, parts of the country may be given representation according to their population. This second method means that regions or parts having larger population would have more representatives in the second chamber than regions having less population. In the USA, every state has equal representation in the Senate. This ensures equality of all the states. But this also means that a small state would have the same representation as the larger states. The system of representation adopted for the Rajya Sabha is different from that in the USA. The number of members to be elected from each state has been fixed by the fourth schedule of the Constitution. What would happen if we were to follow the American system of equality of representation in the Rajya Sabha? Uttar Pradesh, with a population of 1998.12 lakhs, would get seats equal to that of Sikkim, whose population is only 6.10 lakhs. The framers of the Constitution wanted to prevent such discrepancy. States with larger population get more representatives than states with smaller population get. Thus, a more populous state like Uttar Pradesh sends 31 members to the Rajya Sabha, while a smaller and less populous state like Sikkim has one seat in the Rajya Sabha. Members of the Rajya Sabha are elected for a term of 6 years. They can get re-elected. All members of the Rajya Sabha do not complete their term at the same time. Every 2 years, one-third members of the Rajya Sabha complete their term and elections are held for those one-third seats only. Thus, the Rajya Sabha is never fully dissolved. Therefore, it is called the permanent house of the parliament. The advantage of this arrangement is that even when the Lok Sabha is dissolved and elections are yet to take place, the meeting of the Rajya Sabha can be called and urgent business can be conducted. Apart from the elected members, Rajya Sabha also has 12 nominated members. The President nominates these members. These nominations are made from among those persons who have made their mark in the fields of literature, science, art and social service. Lok Sabha. The Lok Sabha and the state legislative assemblies are directly elected by the people. For the purpose of election, the entire country, state in case of state legislative assembly, is divided into territorial constituencies of roughly equal population. One representative is elected from each constituency through universal adult suffrage, where the value of vote of every individual would be equal to another. At present, there are 543 constituencies. This number has not changed since 1971 census. The Lok Sabha is elected for a period of 5 years. This is the maximum. We have seen in the chapter on the executive that before the completion of 5 years, the Lok Sabha can be dissolved if no party or coalition can form the government, or if the Prime Minister advises the President to dissolve the Lok Sabha and hold fresh elections. Bicameralism in Germany. Germany has a bicameral legislature. The two houses are known as Federal Assembly, Bundestag, and Federal Council, Bundesrat. Assembly is elected by a complex system combining direct and proportional representation for a period of 4 years. The 16 federal states of Germany are represented in the Federal Council. The 69 seats of the Bundesrat are divided among states on the basis of a range of populations. These members are generally the ministers in the governments at the state level and are appointed, not elected, by the governments of the federal states. According to the German law, all the members from one state have to vote as a bloc as per the instructions of the state governments. Sometimes, due to coalition government at the state level, they fail to reach an agreement and may have to abstain. The Bundesrat does not vote on all legislative initiatives, but all the policy areas on which the federal states have concurrent powers and are responsible for federal regulations must be passed by it. It can also veto such legislation. What does the parliament do? What is the function of the legislature? Do both houses of the parliament have similar functions? Is there a difference in the powers of the two houses? Apart from lawmaking, the parliament is engaged in many other functions. Let us list the functions of the parliament. Legislative function. The parliament enacts legislations for the country. Despite being the chief lawmaking body, the parliament often merely approves legislations. The actual task of drafting the bill is performed by the bureaucracy under the supervision of the minister concerned. The substance and even the timing of the bill are decided by the cabinet. No major bill is introduced in the parliament without the approval of the cabinet. Members other than ministers can also introduce bills, but these have no chance of being passed without the support of the government. Control of executive and ensuring its accountability. Perhaps the most vital function of the parliament is to ensure that the executive does not overstep its authority and remains responsible to the people who have elected them. We shall discuss this function in greater detail later in this chapter. Financial function. Government is about spending a lot of money on various matters. Where does this money come from? Every government raises resources through taxation. However, in a democracy, legislature controls taxation and the way in which money is used by the government. If the government of India proposes to introduce any new tax, it has to get the approval of the Lok Sabha. The financial powers of the parliament involve grant of resources to the government to implement its programs. The government has to give an account to the legislature about the money it has spent and resources that it wishes to raise. The legislature also ensures that the government does not misspend or overspend. This is done through the budget and annual financial statements. Representation. Parliament represents the divergent views of members from different regional, social, economic, religious groups of different parts of the country. Debating function. The parliament is the highest forum of debate in the country. There is no limitation on its power of discussion. Members are free to speak on any matter without fear. This makes it possible for the parliament to analyze any or every issue that faces the nation. These discussions constitute the heart of democratic decision making. Constituent function. The Parliament has the power of discussing and enacting changes to the Constitution. The constituent powers of both the houses are similar. All constitutional amendments have to be approved by a special majority of both houses. Electoral functions. The Parliament also performs some electoral functions. It elects the President and Vice President of India. Judicial functions. The judicial functions of the Parliament include considering the proposals for removal of President, Vice President, and judges of High Courts and Supreme Court. Powers of Rajya Sabha. We discussed above the functions that are performed by the Parliament in general. However, in a bicameral legislature, there is some difference between the powers of the two houses. Look at the charts showing the powers of Lok Sabha and Rajya Sabha. Powers of the Lok Sabha. Makes laws on matters included in Union List and Concurrent List, can introduce and enact money and non-money bills. Approves proposals for taxation, budgets and annual financial statements. Controls the executive by asking questions, supplementary questions, resolutions and motions, and through no confidence motion. Amends the Constitution. Approves the proclamation of emergency. Elects the President and Vice President and removes judges of Supreme Court and High Court. Establishes committees and commissions and considers their reports. Powers of Rajya Sabha. Considers and approves non-money bills and suggests amendments to money bills. Approves constitutional amendments. Exercises control over executive by asking questions, introducing motions and resolutions. Participates in the election and removal of the President, Vice President, judges of Supreme Court and High Court. It can alone initiate the procedure for removal of Vice President. Can give the Union Parliament power to make laws on matters included in the state list. Special powers of Rajya Sabha. As you know, the Rajya Sabha is an institutional mechanism to provide representation to the states. Its purpose is to protect the powers of the states. Therefore, any matter that affects the states must be referred to it for its consent and approval. Thus, if the Union Parliament wishes to remove a matter from the state list over which only the state legislature can make law, to either the Union list or concurrent list, in the interest of the nation, the approval of the Rajya Sabha is necessary. This provision adds to the strength of the Rajya Sabha. However, experience shows that the members of the Rajya Sabha represent their parties more than they represent their states. Powers exercised only by the Lok Sabha. Then there are powers that only the Lok Sabha exercises. The Rajya Sabha cannot initiate, reject or amend money bills. The Council of Ministers is responsible to the Lok Sabha and not Rajya Sabha. Therefore, Rajya Sabha can criticize the government but cannot remove it. Can you explain why? The Rajya Sabha is elected by the MLAs and not directly by the people. Therefore, the Constitution stopped short of giving certain powers to the Rajya Sabha. In a democratic form as adopted by our Constitution, the people are the final authority. By this logic, the representatives directly elected by the people should have the crucial powers of removing a government and controlling the finances. In all other spheres, including passing of non-money bills, constitutional amendments, and impeaching the president and removing the vice president, the powers of Lok Sabha and Rajya Sabha are co-equal. How does the parliament make laws? The basic function of any legislature is to make laws for its people. A definite procedure is followed in the process of making law. Some of the procedures of lawmaking are mentioned in the Constitution, while some have evolved from conventions. Follow a bill through the legislative process, and you will clearly see that the lawmaking process is technical and even tedious. A bill is a draft of the proposed law. There can be different types of bills. When a non-minister proposes a bill, it is called private member's bill. A bill proposed by a minister is described as a government bill. Let us now see the different stages in the life of a bill. Types of bill: government bill, private member's bill, non-money bill, money bill. Non-money bill has ordinary bill and constitution amendment bill. Even before a bill is introduced in the parliament, there may be a lot of debate on the need for introducing such a bill. A political party may pressurize the government to initiate a bill in order to fulfill its election promises or to improve its chances of winning forthcoming elections. Interest groups, media, and citizens' forums may also persuade the government for a particular legislation. Lawmaking is thus not merely a legal procedure but also a political course of action. The preparation of a bill itself involves many considerations such as resources required to implement the law, the support or opposition that the bill is likely to produce, the impact that the law may have on the electoral prospect of the ruling party, etc. In the era of coalition politics, especially a bill proposed by the government has to be acceptable to all the partners of the coalition. Such practical considerations can hardly be ignored. The cabinet considers all these before arriving at a decision to enact a law. Once the cabinet approves the policy behind the legislation, the task of drafting the legislation begins. The draft of any bill is prepared by the concerned ministry. For instance, a bill raising the marriageable age of girls from 18 to 21 will be prepared by the law ministry. The Ministry of Women and Child Welfare may also be involved in it. Within the parliament, a bill may be introduced in the Lok Sabha or Rajya Sabha by a member of the House. But often a minister responsible for the subject introduces the bill. A money bill can be introduced only in Lok Sabha. Once passed there, it is sent to the Rajya Sabha. A large part of the discussion on the bills takes place in the committees. The recommendation of the committee is then sent to the House. That is why committees are referred to as miniature legislatures. This is the second stage in the lawmaking process. In the third and final stage, the bill is voted upon. If a non-money bill is passed by one house, it is sent to the other house where it goes through exactly the same procedure. As you know, a bill has to be passed by both houses for enactment. If there is disagreement between the two houses on the proposed bill, attempt is made to resolve it through joint session of parliament. In the few instances when joint sessions of the parliament were called to resolve a deadlock, the decision has always gone in favor of the Lok Sabha. If it is a money bill, the Rajya Sabha can either approve the bill or suggest changes but cannot reject it. If it takes no action within 14 days, the bill is deemed to have been passed. Amendments to the bill suggested by Rajya Sabha may or may not be accepted by the Lok Sabha. Article 109, Special Procedure in respect of money bills, Clause 1. A money bill shall not be introduced in the Council of States. When a bill is passed by both houses, it is sent to the President for his assent. The assent of the President results in the enactment of a bill into a law. How does the Parliament control the executive? In a parliamentary democracy, the executive is drawn from the party or a coalition of parties that has a majority in the Lok Sabha. It is not difficult for the executive to exercise unlimited and arbitrary powers with the support of the majority party. In such a situation, parliamentary democracy may slip into cabinet dictatorship, where the cabinet leads and the house merely follows. Only if the parliament is active and vigilant can it keep regular and effective check on the executive. There are many ways in which the parliament can control the executive, but basic to them all is the power and freedom of the legislatures as people's representatives to work effectively and fearlessly. For instance, no action can be taken against a member for whatever the member may have said in the legislature. This is known as parliamentary privilege. The presiding officer of the legislature has the final powers in deciding matters of breach of privilege. The main purpose of such privileges is to enable the members of the legislature to represent the people and exercise effective control over the executive. How does the parliament exercise such control? What are the means available at its disposal? Is parliamentary control successful in curbing executive excesses? Instruments of parliamentary control. The legislature in parliamentary system ensures executive accountability at various stages: policy making, implementation of law or policy, and during and post implementation stage. The legislature does this through the use of a variety of devices: deliberation and discussion, approval or refusal of laws, financial control, no confidence motion. Deliberation and discussion. During the law-making process, members of the legislature get an opportunity to deliberate on the policy direction of the executive and the ways in which policies are implemented. Apart from deliberating on bills, control may also be exercised during the general discussions in the House. The question hour is held every day during the sessions of the Parliament, where ministers have to respond to searching questions raised by the members. Zero hour, where members are free to raise any matter that they think is important, though the ministers are not bound to reply. Half an hour discussion on matters of public importance, adjournment motion, etc. are some instruments of exercising control. Perhaps the question hour is the most effective method of keeping vigil or the executive and the administrative agencies of the government. Members of the parliament have shown great interest in question hour and maximum attendance is recorded during this time. Most of the questions aim at eliciting information from the government on issues of public interest such as price rise, availability of food grains, atrocities on weaker sections of the society, riots, black marketing, etc. This gives the members an opportunity to criticize the government and represent the problems of their constituencies. The discussions during the question hour are so heated that it is not uncommon to see members raise their voice, walk to the well of the house, or walk out in the protest to make their point. This results in considerable loss of legislative time. At the same time, we must remember that many of these actions are political techniques to gain concessions from government and in the process force executive accountability. Approval and ratification of laws. Parliamentary control is also exercised through its power of ratification. A bill can become a law only with the approval of the parliament. A government that has the support of a disciplined majority may not find it difficult to get the approval of the legislature. Such approvals, however, cannot be taken for granted. They are the products of intense bargaining and negotiations amongst the members of ruling party or coalition of parties and even government and opposition. If the government has majority in Lok Sabha but not in the Rajya Sabha, as has happened during the Janata Party rule in 1977 and NDA rule in 2000, the government will be forced to make substantial concessions to gain the approval of both the houses. Many bills, such as the Lokpal Bill, have failed enactment. Prevention of Terrorism Bill 2002 was rejected by the Rajya Sabha. Financial control. As mentioned earlier, financial resources to implement the programs of the government are granted through the budget. Preparation and presentation of budget for the approval of the legislature is constitutional obligation of the government. This obligation allows the legislature to exercise control over the purse strings of the government. The legislature may refuse to grant resources to the government. This seldom happens because the government ordinarily enjoys support of the majority in the parliamentary system. Nevertheless, before granting money, the Lok Sabha can discuss the reasons for which the government requires money. It can inquire into cases of misuse of funds on the basis of the report of the Comptroller and Auditor General and Public Accounts Committees. But the legislative control is not only aimed at financial propriety. The legislature is concerned about the policies of the government that are reflected in the budget. Through financial control, the legislature controls the policy of the government. No confidence motion. The most powerful weapon that enables the parliament to ensure executive accountability is the no confidence motion. As long as the government has the support of its party or coalition of parties that have a majority in the Lok Sabha, the power of the House to dismiss the government is fictional rather than real. However, after 1989, several governments have been forced to resign due to lack of confidence of the House. Each of these governments lost the confidence of the Lok Sabha because they failed to retain the support of their coalition partners. Thus, the parliament can effectively control the executive and ensure a more responsive government. It is, however, important for this purpose that there is adequate time at the disposal of the House. The members are interested in discussion and participate effectively, and there is willingness to compromise amongst the government and the opposition. In the last 2 decades, there has been a gradual decline in sessions of the Lok Sabha and state legislative assemblies and time spent on debates. Moreover, the houses of the parliament have been plagued by absence of quorum, boycott of sessions by members of opposition, which deprive the House the power to control the executive through discussion. What do the committees of parliament do? A significant feature of the legislative process is the appointment of committees for various legislative purposes. These committees play a vital role not merely in lawmaking but also in the day-to-day business of the House. Since the parliament meets only during sessions, it has very limited time at its disposal. The making of law, for instance, requires in depth study of the issue under consideration. This in turn demands more attention and time. Similarly, there are other important functions also, like studying the demands for grants made by various ministries, looking into expenditure incurred by various departments, investigating cases of corruption, etc. Parliamentary committees perform such functions. Since 1983, India has developed a system of parliamentary standing committees. There are over 20 such departmentally related committees. Standing committees supervise the work of various departments, their budget, their expenditure, and bills that come up in the House relating to the department. Apart from standing committees, the joint parliamentary committees have occupied a position of eminence in our country. Joint parliamentary committees (JPCs) can be set up for the purpose of discussing a particular bill, like the joint committee to discuss bill, or for the purpose of investigating financial irregularities. Members of these committees are selected from both houses. The committee system has reduced the burden on the parliament. Many important bills have been referred to committees. The parliament has merely approved the work done in the committees with few occasional alterations. Of course, legally speaking, no bill can become law and no budget will be sanctioned unless approved by the parliament. But the parliament rarely rejects the suggestions made by the committees. The nature of the legislature is such that there are restrictions only so far as procedure is concerned. But in substance, there is no restriction, no limitation on the sovereignty of the legislature or parliament. N.V. Gadgil. How does the parliament regulate itself? Parliament, as mentioned earlier, is a debating forum. It is through debates that the parliament performs all its vital functions. Such discussions must be meaningful and orderly so that the functions of the parliament are carried out smoothly and its dignity is intact. The constitution itself has made certain provisions to ensure smooth conduct of business. The presiding officer of the legislature is the final authority in matters of regulating the business of the legislature. There is one more way in which the presiding officers control the behavior of the members. You may have heard about the anti-defection law. Most of the members of the legislatures are elected on the ticket of some political party. What would happen if they decide to leave the party after getting elected? For many years after independence, this issue was unresolved. Finally, there was an agreement among the parties that a legislator who is elected on one party's ticket must be restricted from defecting to another party. An amendment to the constitution was made, 52nd Amendment Act in 1985. This is known as Anti-Defection Amendment. It has also been subsequently modified by the 91st Amendment. The presiding officer of the House is the authority who takes final decisions on all such cases. If it is proved that a member has defected, then such member loses the membership of the House. Besides, such a person is also disqualified from holding any political office like ministership, etc. What is defection? If a member remains absent in the House when asked by the party leadership to remain present on votes against the instructions of the party or voluntarily leaves the membership of the party, it is deemed as defection. Experience of the past 20 years shows that the anti-defection amendment has not been able to curb defections, but it has given additional powers to the party leadership and the presiding officers of the legislatures over the members.